So this is MYP Grade 7 Science. To briefly describe this course material, it is science units and notes based on the next generation science standards from the United States and the International Baccalaureate Middle Years Program, also known as the IB-MYP. To briefly summarize the unit overview, there's going to be 4 units in total, and these units will be forces and interactions related to physical science, matter and its interactions, also related to physical science, the Earth's place in the universe, related to Earth science, and finally, the human body systems, which relates to life sciences. So, the aims of MIP science is to understand and appreciate science and its implications, consider science as a human endeavor with benefits and limitations, apply language skills and knowledge in a variety of real-life contexts, and develop sensitivity towards the living and non-living environments. So the first unit will be forces and interactions related to physical science. So why would forces and interactions relate to physical science in the first place? Overall, forces and interactions are fundamental to the physical sciences because they provide the framework for understanding of the behavior of matter and the workings of the universe, as well as the principle that underlies the variety of applications. So the IB MIP will always have statement of inquiry, key concept, related concept, and global context. So the statement of inquiry is basically a central question or guiding statement that frames the inquiry-based learning in an MIP unit. So it basically explores an open-ended and often broad concept that encourages the learner to investigate and push them to develop a deep understanding of the topic. So the statement of inquiry for this unit will be change/movement occurs when there is an imbalance of forces interacting with each other. Moving on to key concept. So key concept is the fundamental idea that drive inquiry across different subject areas of the MIP. And they basically represent broad concepts or themes that connect to multiple disciplines and help the learner develop a holistic understanding of the unit. And this key concept will be change. So related concepts is the specific idea or concept that is connected to the key concept and are explored within the individual units of study. And finally, the global context is to refer to the overarching themes or concepts that have global significance. And this global context would be scientific and technical innovation. Moving on to unit notes. The first vocabulary or overall concept is motion. So motion is really easy. It's a change with time of position or orientation of an object. Force is defined as the influence that causes a motion to occur. It is measured in newtons in the International System of Units, and it can exist with or without motion, and a force can exist with or without contact. So here are some examples of contact versus non-contact forces. So first, contact forces. We have applied force, friction force, spring force, and tension force. So applied force is a force that is exerted on an object by a person or another object. It is a contact force as it requires physical contact between the object applying the force and the object experiencing the force. So this is a man pushing a cart would be a good example of applied force, as it needs this person to make contact with the cart, therefore push the cart with contact. So applied force. Second, we have friction force. Friction force is the force that opposes the motion or attempted motion of an object that is in contact with another object or surface. Friction forces is caused due to the microscopic interaction between the surface in contact. It is also a contact force because it occurs when two objects are in contact with each other and it resists their relative motion or attempts to move. This would be an example of friction force, as there is the slope of the ski surface and the person skiing down. And friction force acts in the opposite direction of the applied force that the person skiing is putting. Now we have spring force. Spring force is a force exerted by a stretched or compressed spring, as you can see here. It is contact force as it requires the direct contact between the spring and the object experiencing the force. When a spring is compressed or stretched, it exerts a force that tries to restore it to its original space or shape or position, and this force is proportional to the displacement from the equilibrium position and acts in the opposite direction to the displacement. So this jack-in-the-box would be an example of spring force. Finally, tension force. Tension force is the force transmitted through a string, rope, cable, or any material that can be somewhat of a connector between two forces that can be pulled at both ends. It is a contact force because it occurs when an object is in contact with a string or a rope. So, for an example, this would be tug of war. Tug of war would be an example of tension force, as there needs to be contact from both ends, in this case, people's hands, to pull from each side. Or it can also be if an object was hanging down from a ceiling with a rope. Essentially, all these forces are considered contact forces because they require physical contact or interaction between the objects or surfaces to occur. Moving on to non-contact forces. These are forces that does not require any sort of contact. Electrostatic force. Electrostatic force is the force of attraction or repulsion between electrically charged objects. It occurs from the interaction of electric charges, either positive or negative. And unlike contact forces, electrostatic forces does not require physical contact between the charged objects to act. As they enter the vicinity of the electrostatic field, they will automatically experience a force. For an example, this would be confetti and a balloon. So since the balloon is charged, the confetti can automatically be attracted to the balloon without it having any specific contact beforehand, because the confetti entered the electrostatic field of this balloon. Second, magnetic force. Magnetic force is a force exerted on a magnetic object or a moving charged particle by a magnetic field. So similar to electrostatic force, when a magnetic field interacts with a magnetic object or charged particle in motion, it exerts a force on it. So likewise, the electrostatic force, magnetic force is also an example of non-contact force, as it does not require direct physical contact between the object. So this would be an example of magnetic force, screw and bolts being attracted to a magnet. And since as the screw and bolt enter the magnetic field of the magnet, it is automatically drawn to the magnet without requiring any sort of force to push the screws to the magnet. Finally, gravitational force, or also known as gravity force, is the force of attraction between objects with mass. It is the force responsible for the interaction between bodies as well as the force that makes objects fall to the ground. Gravitational or gravity force acts at a distance between objects and does not require direct physical contact. An example would be skydiving. And as the moment that the skydiver jumps off whatever platform, gravity and gravitational force automatically is able to pull the person towards the ground without having any physical contact to push the person. To summarize, all of these three forces are non-contact forces because they can act on objects without the need for physical touch or interaction. They rely on the properties of electric charges, magnets, and masses, respectively.